everyone, and welcome. I am thrilled today to have a special guest and thought leader, Jodi Rickli, with me. My name is Glynis E. Devine, and I'm the Chief Juicer. I help women just like us squeeze the best out of life. I am thrilled on a lot of counts to have Jodi as my guest. I feel like, although she's a new acquaintance, I feel like we're kindred spirits. Jodi and I share the passion for human spirit development. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a brain surgeon, and I quickly found out that I'm not cut out for the operating room. But I also realized that it was more dissecting the brain while it was still inside the person. And so when Jodi and I got a chance to connect to prepare for today's call, I realized she has that same fascination with the human spirit. So in addition to that, she sings, which is my passion, and she's a mom. So on all counts, Jodi, I feel like I'm interviewing an old friend. Welcome, and thank you for being on the session today.
Thanks for having me, Glynis. I'm super excited about participating in this. I think all of us women need to get together and share our strengths with one another. I'm really excited.
Well, and I'm excited for a couple of reasons. Jodi's expertise right now in this phase of her career, if you will, is the whole intrinsic piece of how people can be the best and bring their A game. Her past experience was many years VP of Kelly Services, which is all staffing and very corporate. And so I'm curious about the corporate element as well, and really looking forward to today. So welcome again. I'm thrilled to have you on the call, thrilled to have your expertise that we can tap into. And for anybody joining the call, please feel free to mute yourself. You can leave the video on. We love smiley faces. If you're not prepared to show your smiley face, you're welcome to turn it off and still participate in the call. How this came about was the project took flight when I heard a very alarming statistic a year ago at a conference I was chairing. I was the MC for the day, and I heard an alarming statistic that said that 5.6% of all of the C-suite positions in Canada and executive board positions were held by women. And that just didn't sound right, because with almost 30% of us in the workforce, that number's way off. And so it quickly became my mission to figure out why. That is a primary driver for me, and then figuring out how we can change that. So starting with the why and then figuring out the how. And so today's call is all about three primary areas. Number one, She-Suite is designed to tap into those intrinsic drivers that can help high potentials, women who have their sights on moving into senior leadership positions, to tap into that, to know what to grow in order to be She-Suite ready. The second slice of that is understanding that if you are a top leader, you are a top woman in your industry, how do you do what leaders have to do? So every leader, man and woman alike, has three primary drivers, three primary mandates. Number one, increase performance. Number two, improve retention, hold on to our top talent. And number three, improve our productivity. And so as women, the question on the table for all of our She-Suite Telesummit thought leaders is, how do we do that differently as women? Do we do it differently? And to come up with some tips and tools and strategies. And the third part of today's Telesummit is largely about creating healthy corporate cultures where we have a sustainable development plan for She-Suite leaders, and where we can have healthy, balanced leaders. That whole myth about balance is a little out there. We'll talk about that too. So Jodi, let's dive right in.
Okay.
First thing I want to tap into is you specifically deal right now with helping people be their best. So let's talk a little bit about how you got ready for that role. Did you have to do anything specific to prepare for a senior leadership position role in your former career or in this one?
I think, Liz, it happens from the onset. And I think if there's any young aspiring people on the phone today, it's not something that you go, okay, I am so many years old or whatever, so much into my career that I should start looking at becoming a leader. You can be a leader from a very early stage in your career, and I think that's what's going to, you know, set you apart. And so from the very beginning, from a very young age, like you said, you wanted to be a brain surgeon. Well, when I was 12, I said to my mother that I wanted to be a manager. And I didn't know what that was. So I was always, you know, that bossy one, you know, making up the puppet plays and, you know, playing school when school was out, and I was always the principal to organize everything. So, you know, there was an innate, like you were saying, there's an intrinsic piece of you that probably I was attracted to. But I always made sure, like, the mindset is very, very important. And so I think it's from the beginning, it's osmosis, it's development. If you are conscious and you make a decision, this is where I want to lead, I want to go to. That's, I mean, anything, any success, any development starts with a decision and a mindset and actually committing to excellence. Anything you do. I taught my kids, it doesn't matter if you're a floor sweeper, you're a doorman, you're a brain surgeon, or you're the CEO of a very large Fortune 100 company. If you do it with excellence, you will be successful. And so, you know, that's really, I believe it's something that, so to answer as well, I think just everything, every life, every experience has sort of prepared me, and it's been a passion. And now working in the current role that I'm doing is all about helping people be their best in the corporate setting. So I'm sort of married the two together now.
Yeah, which is a really nice opportunity, right? When we can take the things that we're passionate about and find a fit in what we do as our corporate mission, that's a really nice sweet spot to be in, isn't it?
It is. And I always like to say to young people as well, or to anybody, you always have a choice. Don't settle. Don't get stuck into golden handcuffs thinking I have to stay here. I don't have a choice. I mean, that's sort of
not in this day and age.
Not in this day and age, for sure. So that's really important too.
All right, so you brought up something very valid, and that is, number one, knowing where you're going, making a decision, and then staying the course. You also mentioned mindset, and I really want to tap into that because I, like you, share the belief that we need healthy habits to help us. When I'm doing corporate training, one of the things, whether I'm teaching in communications or leadership, what I will often say is these tools are not when everything's running tickety-boo. You intrinsically know what to do. Those tools are when we are tired, hungry, sick, hormonal, or rushed, when we're not at our best. And that's when those healthy habits have to kick in. So my question for you, Jodi, is what healthy habits do you have that make you strong when faced with conflict? What do you do on a daily, monthly, weekly, yearly basis that helps you be your best?
Okay, great question. I'm a prolific reader. I read all the time. If I don't have a couple of books on the go, you know, readers are leaders. So you need to read, people. I read self-development, spirituality. I read the latest one of my business books I'm reading now is all about, you know, Harvard, the best articles from Harvard Business Review on emotional intelligence.
Wow, that's like reading.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Yeah, so reading is definitely also keeping, well, we don't really throw around that word, you bandy around the balance word, but truly, you know, we have 3 children, John and I, and we made it, no matter how busy and how senior our positions and national and traveling and craziness, we created a haven at home. You know, you came home like kids, you know, we had dinner pretty well every night together. And if one of us was traveling, one of us was traveling, and so really to keep in touch, because we're all busy. And those were times when, you know, the children would go to bed and I'd pull out the laptop again, but I had that time with them. You know, reading, eating properly, obviously. I used to be, when I was younger, you know, I used to only sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours, but I'm a 7-hour now, and 7 or 8 hours a night.
It's necessity, I think, as we get older.
Yeah, I think just as we get older, you know. But yes, and I always kept in some sort of shape, if you will. You know, sometimes it was sporadic, but also that physical side, you know, very active with the children. And yeah, so reading, eating properly, and keeping that harmony at home was really important personally for me.
And I think that touches, you and I had a chance to talk, and I think we share some similar values, and certainly the one about family. And I think for you and I both, it's a good fit with our personality type, that when home is good, everything else is good. And that becomes our grounding post, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I used to say, happy mummy, happy family.
True.
You know, because if mom's off, everything's going up, right? If mom's not happy, get out of the way. Don't make eye contact, right?
Yeah. Very, very good. I know that you share a similar passion as I do. You do far more actively with it, so kudos to you. And that is nurturing that side of you that is the creative side. So do you want to tell me a little bit about your passion?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, I love to sing. I sing in a choir, so I'm not your pop singer here. I'm not, I love Nora Jones though, by the way. But I do sing in a choir. And actually, again, combining, I like to be efficient. So I'm trying, you know, combining my charity work with my passion, which is singing. So I actually sing in a women's choir called Equivox, which means for Latin equal voices. And the whole reason that we do this is to raise money for women's causes. And, you know, and we also, like we said, we have an event at the end of the year at Christmas time, and we actually sing to elderly people as well. We have like a chantaton, a sing-along. And that's sort of, so that's, I combine, you know, there's always been a piece of me, like charity, giving back is really, really important. That's another value that we share. And I know people on the phone as well that I'm aware who's on the phone with us do that. And it's always doing something bigger than yourself. I actually took a break from my corporate world for a while, and I was 6 years working for a youth violence prevention program. I was the regional executive director. And I took this little baby and grew it across the country with the co-founder who's in Montreal. And I proceeded to stay on the board for 3 years as well.
Jodi, can I ask you to share that? Because some people aren't aware of that, and I think it's a very, very worthy cause.
Yeah, it's called Love, Leave Out Violence. And it's a violence prevention program using media arts. So again, it's something that we get the children, to get the youth, the 12 to 18-year-olds, to express themselves through media arts. And we give them leadership training. These kids go on to become really solid corporate good citizens in their communities. They educate their peers. That's the whole idea, is having youth speak to youth. And I'm very passionate about it. I went on to stay 3 years on that board, and I'm still in touch with that cause. So the active one right now is the choir. Again, being efficient, trying to get my singing in, but doing my charity piece.
I love it.
But Leave Out Violence is a great cause, very worthy cause too.
I agree, and I ended up hearing about it a number of years ago. I think it's a very necessary cause right now, and I think that, like you, I believe that when we give young people tools as opposed to some of the negative things in life, that arms them to be socially responsible, to be contributing leaders, to be people of influence, positive influence in the world. So kudos to you. I think that's an awesome contribution that you've made. And I love Equivox. I think the whole mandate of it is amazing. The idea that it's women helping women is huge to me, through something that I'm very passionate about. So it's gone on my radar in terms of next projects I might take on. Thank you, Jodi. Tons. That's fun. So that said, juggling a family, and you have children now that are on different continents, which makes it a little bit more challenging, I'm sure. Juggling giving. You've already mentioned that one of the ways you balance all of that is you look for an efficient way to do all of that and be effective. I do have a question. Is there a price to pay? Is there a price to pay for being a senior woman leader? And if so, what is it?
I would say in my own case, come out pretty unscathed, but there were times when me time and taking care of myself would be the first one to go on the wayside. You know, don't get to the gym. If it was between doing something for the children or getting on that plane or whatever, you just say, okay, the gym can wait. The gym can wait, right? So that's been personally my biggest challenge, is to me time and, unfortunately, girlfriend time. You know what I mean? Like, just I come from a very large family, so I consider my four sisters and nieces of my best friends, but they live in Toronto.
Awesome.
But but having that, if I had to again choose between family activity, I would tend to do that. So I would say for myself, I'm actually coming into that now, actually in my older, more advanced career in getting back into taking care of myself more and nurturing relationships, going out, like, meeting people and actually nurturing and spending the time, because that's the price that I felt I paid.
Well, and you bring up a really valid point, right? The one thing I'm learning through all of the interviews with thought leaders that I'm doing is balance is not an equal time factor to all areas of our life. Balance can mean having lots of something at a certain stage in our life and very little something else. And then in a different phase in life, having lots of that thing that we didn't have. So I figure when I'm dead, that's when I'm going to catch up on all the sleep that I'm missing. But for right now, the fun is kind of more what my priority is. All right,
yeah.
Let's switch gears a little bit. You were VP Kelly for the Eastern sector, overseeing 150 employees. That takes some juggling. You had a lot of travel. I'm curious because at that point, your mandates were the same as most leaders, right? How do I increase performance? How do I hold on to that top talent, especially for you, because talent was your industry, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then lastly, how do you get those people to be more productive? So my specific question for this piece of the telesummit is, how do women achieve these mandates differently than male colleagues in the similar position?
Well, at the end of the day, I've always felt we all have to deliver the same results, whether or not you're a woman or a man. Okay. And so I sometimes waver between, is it really gender or is it really personal style? Okay. I know there are huge differences, and I'm not an expert like yourself, maybe on how we're wired differently as men and women, but I know from a personal point of view, it was always really important that I managed, the young mums and the young dads who, you knew that there's going to be days when we used to call it the daycare dash. They had to get out on time, and we nurtured an environment where, and I always believed that, where you helped each other out. Like you said, I might have a sick kid, and that would be just very natural to foster an environment where that other consultant is going to take your desk over, because I know that when Johnny gets sick, you're going to be on, that sort of thing. So I think personally, I don't know if it was because I was a mom, because I certainly wasn't managed like that from the president that I was being managed by. Okay. But I personally, always felt that empathy, that nurturing, that, have fun while you're doing it. But at the end of the day, we all have to deliver those. Business is business. And you're in the corporate world. It's like, they want this much return. So you have to deliver it. So I think.
So you didn't necessarily see the difference attributed to gender, but more to role and personality.
Yeah. Correct? Personally, that's been my experience, personally.
Cool. Yeah. That's wonderful. So I have another question that deals with gender as well. Although men and women alike have to achieve those mandates, and I hear what you're saying. We're made up of so many different layers. Personality makes that up. Gender makes that up. Generation makes that up. Age, experience, all of that makes us a sum total of who we are. I'm curious, are women tapping into all that they do have that does make them different?
I would say we could probably do a better job of being authentic.
Pardon me?
I think we could do a better job of being authentic, using that intuition that doesn't go like, woo-hoo, to some people, but way out there. But I think being more, being yourself, I think that's the biggest thing that, from our generation, when you're getting into management in the 80s with the big power suits on and the shoulder pads and, the big hair, everything was big. We were sort of trained, if you wanted to get somewhere, you had to act like a man.
Yes.
I come from that generation.
Be tough, don't show emotion.
Yeah, don't cry. Oh, for God's sake, don't cry.
Yeah.
Make everybody uncomfortable in the meeting. and all these things. But I think it's evolved. I don't think it's equal to this day, but I think it's to be authentic to yourself and not be afraid. Because I think women, we do harbor, I mean, a lot of us have gone through that imposter syndrome. Like, if I'm a VP, like, oh my God.
If they only knew what I didn't know.
If they only knew what I don't know. You're waiting for that shoe to drop, right?
Yeah.
And so
That's
many of my friends.
For a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of that. Yeah.
I love the answer of authenticity, because I think, for one thing, I think that as a culture, there's far more room for it and there's far more demand for it, right? We've gone, I always look to entertainment as kind of the barometer of what's going on culturally. And we went from Hollywood, where everything is bigger than life, and staged and perfect, into sitcom, which was really into people's living rooms, into reality TV, which there's nothing less real on the planet, into now today we have this craving for something real. And I think that that's transported into the boardroom, where we also crave something real. We crave genuineness. We crave authenticity. I have pardon?
No, I was just going to add that sort of is a link to the type of work that I'm doing with Thomas International right now. Is, you know, it's helping people get to their authenticity. Some people sort of aren't aware, and if we're not self-aware, we can't really be effective, you know, and manage our relationships and things. So, and I'm seeing just right now, I mean, Class A companies would not think of making any people decisions to hire, fire, or promote without some sort of psychometric evaluations to help them and the people get in touch. So I think, to your point, it's these tools, these are things that are helping people get to their authenticity, their genuineness, and to find a fit and make a choice.
And I think it's far more widespread. You bring up a really valid point. Thomas has been around for a long time in business, and yet 20 years ago, that wouldn't be the first place a corporation would go into psychodynamic metrics, right? They now tend to, I mean, HR experts are saying EI is up to four times more important than, or EQ is up to 4 times more important than IQ. So we're tending to recognize it for the impact it has.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, with the work that you do, and we haven't talked about this, so I'm a little curious. I run a women's empowerment retreat, and we go down to Punta Cana because it's so much easier to find yourself close to the beach and with a margarita in your hand. And all kidding aside, we tend to have women who are mid-30s and beyond. And I find that they're ripe for starting to tap into that inner voice. And you brought up a very valid point. It comes down to self-awareness, right? And that's what you specialize in. That's what your expertise is helping people tap into that self-awareness. Are people starting to do it? Are women starting to do that earlier?
For sure. I mean, I think it all goes together, Glynis, where as a corporation is making this a priority. Like right now, today, what's keeping CEOs up at night is human capital. Yep. When we say human capital, we're talking human resources, right? That famous saying from the great business guru that says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And culture, right? The culture is your people. So to answer, I think that it's becoming more mainstream. Like I said, Class A, sophisticated companies are not onboarding anything, what their behavioral style is, defining what they're looking for, their cognitive capacity, what's their learning agility. It's nice that you want to go that far, but what do we need to develop in you? Your potential and your emotional intelligence. So I'm seeing probably as we go along, the younger people will be exposed, especially because we're bringing in, I know ourselves at Thomas, you know, we're in that transformation. You'll hear that word a lot. A lot of companies are in transformation, and
absolutely,
it's the young people that are coming in out of, you know, the grads and things. I mean, it's always been, but right now with the technology, I mean, you need gurus in digital marketing. You need forensic digital marketing going on right now to keep a competitive edge in all industries. So I'm seeing that young people will probably be more, and they're wanting it. I'll tell you, the millennials want that awareness.
Yeah.
They do.
Well, yeah, because relationships are vital to them.
Exactly.
In a way that we haven't seen since our parents' generation, right? I take issue on some of the myths that are out there about millennials. I think they're a brilliant population. They think far faster and far more effectively than my generation ever did. And what we're learning from metrics of studies is the fact that they do want relationships. Their relationships and their connectedness looks different than how we're used to, but it's every bit as important. And so I think you're right. They're tending to tap into that far earlier than our generation did.
And we're trading them too, as you've heard yourself, that, you know, people leave managers, they don't leave companies.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you'll have the goodwill, but then these poor managers are out there, and especially a techie that gets promoted as a people manager. The poor guy's like, I don't know how to manage people. So how are the corporations equipping their managers? And it's through a lot of these tools that you're talking about, and, you know, and sessions and coaches like yourself doing that.
Well, and that's the interesting part, right? I do a leadership conference, and I teach from supervisors all the way up to top level leaders, and top level leaders who have been leading people for 30 years. When you ask the question, you know, what kind of training did you have? They'll often look at you and go, today's my first one. Because we're doing everything at the speed of light. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, two statistics I want to challenge. One is the whole idea of how can we get more women into those C-suite positions. Another alarming statistic that I read straight out of a report from Catalyst is the fact that when polled, participants who were male, 28% of them said, we have plenty of women in the C-suite, we don't need to grow that, where 92% of women said, no, we need more women in C-suite and what they can give. So I'm curious what your take on that is, because you have so many more metrics. Why wouldn't men want more women in the C-suite?
I mean, I really don't know. I don't think it's very smart. And yes, maybe I'm biased, but just think about it. Do any of these men that are answering this, do they have daughters? Like, are you like going to grow, you know, you're going to raise a strong daughter and tell her, you can only go here, sweetie? What father would say that? I mean, sometimes I think these people need to take a step back and actually, what do they mean by that? You know, because I could throw around and say, oh, maybe they're feeling threatened, but I just don't know why. You know, I don't have that statistics why, but I would turn that around and ask, you know, how's that working for you? What's your daughter?
Fair enough.
I mean, have you heard? I don't know. Do you have statistics on, or any insights? Because I'd be curious to know as well why people who were, you know, I don't know.
Well,
why would they think there's enough?
Some of my thought leaders have suggested that perhaps it's same old, and you and I both know the human spirit takes the road of least resistance. So if it's always been that way, don't fix what ain't broke idea. Another of my thought leaders said they just don't know. There's certainly some suggestions out there that it's not men holding women back from top positions, but it's actually other women.
Oh.
I don't believe, and you and I have had a discussion about this as well, I don't believe that most healthy women, let me turn that around into the positive. I believe that most healthy female leaders are looking to move other females up the ranks. I don't believe that women backstab. And call me naive, that's not been my reality. The healthy women that I choose to surround myself with have always been helpful, have always, you know, put a hand down to pull somebody up, have always nurtured in me the qualities and the traits that were going to help me. I don't have any experience different from that. Can you speak to that? You deal with, especially with your years at Kelly, you specifically saw women helping women.
Absolutely. And I mean, and that, to your point, that's how I governed myself. There was nothing more rewarding to help any person who wanted to develop. I have 3 kids, 2 of them are young daughters, they're daughters, so always setting the example. And, you know, I thought you were going to say what's holding other women back, not other women, but maybe ourselves.
And there I agree with you.
You know, but again, I just keep coming back to style, environment, personality. Like I was always a strong believer in, if you want to move and develop, you need to develop people. You know, you need to have your successor in the wings.
Absolutely.
So not to limit yourself. And I always did that, always. And I required that of my managers, even if it wasn't official, but put a program together where when Jodi's on vacation, so-and-so is going to take over that meeting. Give them some exposure to the senior management and that circle. And do these sort of things concretely, not just, oh yeah, she's my mentor. No, what did you do? And I held them accountable. They had to do at least one activity per month on developing who, you know, and that's just smart business. Something could happen. I could leave. I could get ill. I could get sick. You know, or I want that promotion. But my role is so big out here in the East. I need to be able to tell, you know, assure people that I'm not going to create a big hole, because that gets into a lot of people's way. They're not prepared for the succession.
I adore that philosophy on so many levels. Number one, having somebody to cover you makes you available to move up at any given time.
Exactly.
Having somebody trained to do that sets them up for a win from the get-go. How better to nurture somebody to be their best than to give them opportunities to do that in a safe environment, right? Short-term, controlled, not permanent, set them up for a win. They get enough of those under their belt and wow, they're thriving, right?
Yeah, and people will naturally start going to them. So through osmosis, they're actually being seen as a bit of a leader within their peers. And that's what I was saying at the beginning of our conversation, that you can be a leader from a very young age. Whatever level that you're at, whatever you're doing, commit to excellence and helping others. I truly believe that. And I think that people who deliberately keep information because of insecurities, and we know that that happens because they believe, wrongly so, that they'll become indispensable. But nobody's indispensable. That's
I remember Brian. Pardon?
I said we're all replaceable, you know?
I remember Brian Tracy used to say it was painting yourself into the career corner, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
the only one who knows all the access codes, the only one who knows, and the problem is they stay the only person that knows that because they never get an opportunity to grow into
move on. Yes.
Yeah. So I do love that philosophy, and I think that it's a philosophy that, as we segue into my last question, how do we create a corporate culture that is a place to thrive? I think lots of opportunities for our people to shine is one of the best ways, right? I love your suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it not sort of, you don't get lost in red tape or permissions and things. It's just something that you're doing in your department, something you're doing in your division, you know, and you know, and developing your people that way. And like you said, it's just smart business. Because,
and for somebody who's new to leadership, the feedback I get when I teach any kind of session on supervisory skills or new managers or a crash course for new managers, one of the hardest challenges that new leaders go through is making that transition from being one of the peeps to leading the peeps. And so this is a great opportunity to showcase your people in a leadership position before they're officially in that position.
Absolutely.
So that they are visibly rewarded for that, right?
Absolutely. And because that's a very good point. The most difficult thing to do is to get promoted from within a group, because you were part of the peeps, and now you're the plebs, and now you're the manager with the office. And in doing these types of exercises, what you're creating within your division or department or country, whatever you're managing, is an osmosis, a natural. People will start seeing Glynis as the go-to. Oh, I'm not going to bother Jodi with that. I've seen Glynis knows these answers. And all of a sudden, they're being perceived. So when it does come time that it's made official, everyone will be like, oh yeah, no brainer. As opposed to, why did she get it? You know? I don't get it. It's a no-brainer. Of course, Glynis should be in that chair.
Love that strategy, Jodi. That's really bright. I have one quick question to end with, and that is everybody wants to work in an environment that is respectful, that is positive, that they're fairly compensated for. Do you think there's any additional elements that women specifically are looking for in those top positions? Is the corner office measured the same for women as men?
I think one of my, it's the pay equity would be really nice. If we were getting paid, that would be a great place to start. Otherwise, what I find, like, again, you get to a leadership role, at the end of the day, boy, girl, you have to deliver. That's what it is. So, you know, yes, we're going to bring our different styles to it, and that's where I go with, it's the style. You know, culture of a company, it's not, you know, those lovely little things that are on the board at the reception that you read the values. Culture isn't what we say, it's what we do. And so and that's where my work at Thomas is really important. That's where we're helping clients to actually identify, you know, what does good look like around here? And then when you're recruiting and onboarding, you know, how do we get, that's going to lead into the retention. Oh, well, look at that person here, high potential, because we've done a cognitive test on this person. We know that, wow, we have her in the wings. She could probably step into Glynis's role really quicker than Jodi because of these scores. And it helps us make some really smart people decisions. And then
far more strategic than reactive.
Oh, yes. And we're seeing that in the HR function. There's finally a C for CHRO, Chief HR Officer, like a CEO, a COO. There's more and more companies have a CHRO. And that's just shining the light on strategic HR. Because if we go back to my earlier comment, it's human capital that are keeping CEOs up at night today.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. One of the things that I like to do in any session that when I'm corporate training is I like to tie the day up with what I call a wow. So not, oh my gosh, wow, but wow within 1 week, because we do know that people that action something immediately get better ROI. So we have 3 types of listeners today. We have high potentials that are looking to move into leadership. We have senior leaders who are females, and we have corporations looking to pack the nest a little more attractively. So let's give each of them a wow. Let's start off with the corporate cultures. What's one thing corporations can do quickly to make their corporate culture a little healthier?
I would say evaluate your people and find out where are you at right now? What is your culture? And that's by evaluating your people.
Nice. So creating a baseline.
Yep,
Second group are top achievers, people that are already senior leaders as you are. What's a call to action that we can lead them with? What can they do immediately to continue to be healthy?
Well, again, if they haven't had the privilege or they're not really sure about what their style is or how have they changed since that time that they did an evaluation 8 years ago at the company, I'd like to offer, like, all those groups, if anybody out there would like to do a Thomas behavioral, cognitive, and emotional intelligence evaluation, that's something that you could start right with yourself. Doesn't matter if you're in the corner suite already, or you're aspiring to be, or you're just starting your career. It's powerful information. And if you are a senior leader, get to know your people.
And as you say, that starts with us, right? Too many leaders have been leading people for a long time without any formal training. So Jodi, you have a really attractive offer, and I thank you for the generosity of sharing that. Do you want to tell listeners what they can take advantage of? Sure.
So anybody who's listening or is going to listen to the recording, you can contact me either at my Thomas email. I think I'm going to send it up for Glynis to put up, or through LinkedIn. And Thomas is offering, will sponsor you to take all 3 evaluations. It's not going to take you 10 days of your life. One of them is 6 or 10 minutes long. Another one is 30 minutes, and another one is 25 minutes. So a nice weekend, something to do on the weekend. Invest in yourself to start. So, you know, just check me out on LinkedIn, or I'll send the link through to Glynis and she can put it up with the recording. And just contact me and say, I heard you on, or I'm referred by She Suite, and we can get the ball rolling.
Beautiful. So it's Jodi, Jodi Rickli, Rickli, She's on LinkedIn. Find her, connect with her, and I'll be happy to put your email address on with the link to those assessments. And Jodi, thank you for the generosity. I really appreciate that. You and I have had a fairly in-depth discussion about the importance of self-awareness being the catalyst to start, right? Knowing what that baseline is before we grow. So thank you again for that. Listeners, please tune in to shesuite.ca for a list of all our upcoming thought leaders. Join me on LinkedIn. Join the She Suite group on LinkedIn. And again, Jodi, thank you. Mom extraordinaire, grandma.
Grandma to be, yes.
singing her way to success and helping corporations be the best they can. That's as close to squeezing the best out of life. So thank you, Jodi.
Thank you, Ernest.
SheSuite.ca, awesome. Where Canadian women are changing the game. Have a great day.